Jan here. In this video we're going to cover the lick you just heard, but also I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of transcribing, meaning learning music by ear instead of tabs, and how that can impact your overall development as a player. So this is a Michael Romeo inspired tapping lick. It's a variation on a lick that I found on the first Symphony X album, and it's pretty interesting to me because when I think of Michael Romeo, I think more of his seventh arpeggios type tapping, the diminished seventh stuff. And not so much these scalar lines. And I think more of Greg Howe when I hear this stuff. So here's how Greg would use it. I always loved these type of Greg Howe lines, so it was very cool to hear that Michael Romeo is playing as well. And I can highly recommend that you go back and listen to your favorite players and just go through their whole discography song by song. Just sit there and listen with guitar in hand, and then whenever you find something that's cool, stop the recording and then try to learn it and just figure that out. Because it's very easy to think that a particular player has a specific sound, and you kind of in your mind think that, well, Michael Romeo, he does these 10 things all the time, or Yngwie does these 10 things. But there's way more to these players' technique and vocabulary than that. And if you go through things systematically, meaning really listening to every song they've recorded, and let this be a project, let it take time, you can pick up so much more nuance, and you might find something that you can apply in your own playing. So like I said, this is a variation. He used it in another tonal context. I just did it in a Lydian context. And also the guitar is tuned down a whole step as well, because like I said, I've been working on a lot of Symphony X stuff lately. So now when you know the lick, I think a better way to learn this technique is to work it through the 3-note per string scales. And just start with whatever shapes you're comfortable with. So I'm gonna show it with this shape. So again, I'm tuned down a whole step here. So I'm starting on this note, 10th fret, and just going up 10, 12, 14 on E and A. And then 11, 12, 14 on D and G. And finally 12, 14, 15 on the B and E string. So what I suggest that you practice here is the descending sixes. And do that from each string group. Right, so all string groups. And then you do ascending sixes, same thing. So on, all string groups. And then you do the combination basically, where you go, like we do in the lick as well. So in the middle, so you get used to that, and then basically do that on all string groups. So you go, and make sure that you apply all the practice techniques that I've shared on this channel so far as well. Not all of them will be applicable. The planting stuff for the right hand won't be applicable to this thing, but most will be, in terms of the transition time, for example, when you slow everything down, but do very fast transitions and try to keep everything as legato as possible. And also looping, for example, is a really good one here. And that's where you basically gonna start on each note of the pattern. So if you have 6 notes here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. Then you start to loop at the first note, and then you start to loop at the second note, the third note, and so on, 4th, 5th, and 6th as well. And I'm going to link all these in the description as well, so you can check them out if you missed them. But the point of me sharing all this practice advice or practice tools is for you to use them. And like I said, they're applicable in most situations. So make sure to check those out as well. And when you do this, focus on getting the tap note and the first finger after that tap note down at the same time. So you sync those two up. So in the case of the top strings here, you would sync these two when you do the descending patterns, because that will enable you to play it way faster and smoother when you speed it up. Because if you do this and then try to get it down, it's not going to work very well. And if you can focus on this when you practice slowly, which by now, if you've followed my channel at all, you know I'm a big advocate of practicing slowly. So, and another thing to look out for here is to not over tap, because that's something that I did myself when I started learning these kind of licks, and it sounds kind of crappy because you sort of overdo the tap, and then it becomes very hard to get an even sound with the left hand. So just listen to what you're doing and try to get every note as even as possible, and don't over tap, because you don't need to do that. You just need to get a sound that sounds the same as your left hand. So all practice really comes down to how well you can hear. So that's why I think it's very important to transcribe music by ear and don't rely on tabs all the time. So do yourself a favor and really focus on learning things by ear as much as possible. Use the tabs that's available or the lessons available of varying quality online to check your work, absolutely, but the way that you listen when you try to transcribe something, and I'm not talking about writing it down here, I'm just talking about figuring the notes out, you listen in a much deeper way. So that's my best tip I could ever give to anyone. And that's really something that I have seen missing in the younger guitar players that come to me for lessons. They might have really good technique and know a lot of stuff, but a lot of them have real trouble if something isn't tabbed out for them. They still need tabs because they can't connect the sound of something to their fretboard, and that's a massive problem because music is all about hearing, in my opinion. So don't neglect that. But when it comes to practicing then, make sure you really listen, because if you don't hear that you do something wrong, if you can't hear that, you know, you overdo the tap, or you can't hear that a string is ringing, you're out of tune or whatever, your timing is off, the less you can hear that, the more mistakes you're going to repeat. And you can never get rid of mistakes if you keep repeating them. So the better you can hear, the easier it will be for you to fix your mistakes. That's also why it's so good to record yourself when you practice, because then you can listen back and really listen and hear those mistakes that might totally escape you when you sit there and practice, because then you're focusing so much on actually doing the thing, so you can't really focus as much as you need to on the actual sound that you're producing. So don't neglect ear training, and that's pretty much it. So before you do anything else, check this video out on transcribing and some very helpful tips and hints on how you can get better at it.